Hi, I'm your host, Reena Suri, and welcome to Thriving Changes, a place where we share stories from brave and courageous people who have navigated challenges, crises, or a change in their personal or professional life and gave it a new meaning. It's a platform where leaders open up about their fears, vulnerabilities, and the journey that led them to triumph. Our hope is to inspire and motivate others to take their first step towards thriving changes. Chrissie Steyn, founder and clinical director of Steyn Integrative Counseling, has been on a podcast before where she shared her cancer journey. If you missed that episode, you'll find the link in the description. That experience became a powerful wake-up call for Chrissy, revealing just how disconnected she had become from her own body. It led her on a deep exploration of the nervous system where she uncovered what she now calls a life-changing insight: the power of befriending your nervous system. By learning to listen to our body, we can begin to recognize and understand our nervous system responses. I walked away from this conversation with a better understanding of myself, how I function, react, and process. A must listen. Welcome back, Chrissy.
Thank you.
Your last episode got me thinking. You spoke about your cancer journey and our mind and our body and how they're connected and how we don't really look deeply into that connection, and we're coming from our head and completely ignore our body. And that really got me thinking how often I work from that. The new science, I'm hearing it all over, that our gut is our second brain.
Mm-hmm.
Listening to it, our eating habits, yes, but it's also all that gut instinct that we talk about. I really wanted to know from you how you look back at that journey, because your cancer journey was at that time was all about survival. One really doesn't think about it from a technical space, from a scientific mental health state, just doing everything that you can to recover.
Yeah, it really was survival in that season. And I knew just enough. It was just beginning to become more aware that I have this body that needs me to pay attention. But in survival, it was like the day to day, urgent, immediate kinds of things. Now I've had much more of an opportunity to integrate the experience more and process it more. And as somebody who I'm so glad you brought up the gut and your microbiome. And I'm somebody who is in healthcare, and I've got a particular perspective or slice of healthcare that I work with people and their bodies to try to figure out how maybe this part of their system is contributing to their symptoms or their health or their wellness, and very much appreciate and partner with functional doctors who look at the other side, your labs and your hormones and the balances of all of that, but they so interplay. So if you've got an excess of mold or you have an overgrowth of something, bad bacteria supposedly in your microbiome, that's going to could contribute, or like high blood sugar could contribute to your mental health symptoms as well. And vice versa. I had patients who have had really difficult periods, or they've had difficulty digesting dairy or gluten or different things. And then once they work through their trauma in this beautiful way of attuning to their body that we can talk about more in this conversation, their physical periods after 6 months of doing trauma work, like resolve. They were going to get surgery and now they aren't going to, or they couldn't eat this and now they can eat this. Their body can function almost as it was intended to, because it has freed up resources to now digest food again, for instance. Or maybe the stress hormones shift in someone's body, and so their endocrine system is working the way it should be. So everything is connected. And so I don't work with a patient and I say, okay, so you're gluten free. I can fix that. That would be insane. I cannot know that. But I do enjoy being able to help people facilitate the process of getting to know and working with their body and learning from their body what is going on. And if there is a trauma response that's related to their symptoms, that's something that we might be able to help the body with. And then if it's not, there's great doctors and nutritionists and people who can help, right? So a lot of my physical journey is learning to put all of the pieces together and value all of the pieces and get really clear on what my piece of it is to help people with. So prior to my cancer journey, I don't know, for those familiar with the Enneagram, I'm typed as a 9, which is the peacemaker. And there's a quote from Shannon K. Evans in the book, The Mystics Would Like a Word. And she says, those familiar with the Enneagram will understand when I say I am a 9, the peacemaker. And I was like, oh, that's why I love this lady. When I'm reading her book, I'm like, you're also a 9. We're 9s together. And then she says, which in my case means my default mode of existence is to forget that I have a body at all. Oh my gosh, that's my whole story, right? To forget that I have a body is my whole story. And now in this second half of life, post-cancer journey, and this second half of life as a mental health therapist, I'm obsessed with my body in some level, right? Not to the level of health anxiety, which I know a lot of people do struggle with. Some are more like me, where they're more disconnected from their body and more just externally focused and cognitive oriented. Others are hyper attuned to every little ache and pain and itch and thing going on in their system, which can create a lot of anxiety for them. But either way, I have learned gotten a map for the inner world and the body that I think is really helpful to help people facilitate building and befriending their body, attuning to it and befriending it, building a relationship with it that is very effective and not overwhelming. And because part of my journey for many years, even after cancer, was like, okay, I'm going to listen to my body and like, how do I do that? And what does it need? And okay, I'm going to buy a new mattress because my body aches. But beyond that, there's so much more going on inside of us that I think we don't have a collective language for, or great shared understanding of how to conceptualize our bodies and our inner world in a way that's really helpful. So a couple of years ago, I started learning a lot first about the nervous system, and that we all have a nervous system. I learned that in school growing up, but I just learned the basics, that you have an autonomic nervous system and it breathes for you and it beats our hearts, right? You can lift a car suddenly if it's going to roll over your cat. Oh no, I'm going to lift up the car. I'm going to save the cat. Okay, so that's my only understanding until a few years ago, the autonomic nervous system. And then I started to learn that actually our autonomic nervous system is pretty much running most of our lives. Like, most of the choices we make are made from our nervous system's autonomic responses, which is a scary thought. Like, I'm not in charge as much as I thought I was. Like, my body is, my nervous system is. And often it's doing so in a reactive way, not in a thoughtful, attuned, spirity way. So I got really curious about how to help people understand their nervous systems a bit more, and got curious about different ways of helping our nervous systems relax so that they were less in the driver's seat, if that makes sense.
Give us an example, maybe a real life example from you, like when you were diagnosed, what were some autopilot reactions that you're talking about?
I'll use one that a lot of people can relate to. Let's say when I had kids, I find myself getting quickly frustrated to a degree inside that I didn't know was even possible. With a 2-year-old who's so sweet and I love so much and is just being a 2-year-old. So then I have these like autonomic responses in my body that do not match the situation at all.
Yeah.
And what's up with that? Or really take any mental health symptom. Why is my body like this? Is it because it's just my brain's broken? Why do I dissociate? Why do I zone out and check out? Why do I scroll on my phone so much? Why do I feel floaty and foggy after work every day when I get home? Why am I having these responses? Why can't I go to the gym? So anything that you wish was different about your life, anything that you value, but you cannot get your body to do it, there's often a gap there where we're confused about why that's happening, and we often feel shame about it. And we blame ourselves for it, or we have parts of our inner world that like criticize us for it, or we think we just need more willpower and we try all the different hacks. Like maybe if I get this sunrise alarm clock, which is what I was Googling today, maybe I will wake up more gently. Like we're always seeking outside of us often to resolve these things that we're experiencing on the inside. And I'm no different. That's how we are, our bodies are often oriented to solving problems outside of us, unless we had a wildly secure childhood in which we were never overwhelmed without loving support. Which is ridiculous because we're human and we're raised by humans who are bringing their own stuff into this world, right? So we have all of these almost like unprocessed bits of overwhelm that get stuck in our systems and it comes out sideways. But like you said, it's not layman's talk. It's not that we don't have a language for it. So why do I not do what I want to do? Why can't I do it? Why do I feel not enough all the time? Or why do I feel dramatically afraid that I'm going to get fired, even though I'm on top of everything all the time at work and perfection and whatever. There's just so many examples of how our nervous systems are working in overdrive to try to protect us. And that's by design. So I think it's just really important to stop and bring a little compassion to the fact and the awareness that we have these autonomic nervous systems that are working to help us survive, not just breathe, not just beat our heart, but also like taking over because they are oriented to keep us alive, even emotionally, socially. But the nervous system is very unique to you and it's very unique to me. So everyone's got their own unique nervous system, which is another thing I think is really important to understand. My coworker here, Jamie, calls it bespoke. Each nervous system is bespoke, right? So it's a combination of your epigenetics and your lived experience that your nervous system has learned how to protect you in a certain way. Even when it no longer serves you anymore because you're an adult, it can often keep behaving in this protective way. And we think that we're secretly broken and flawed and carry a lot of shame often, even if we're not aware that we're carrying the shame, when it's just our nervous system doing its thing.
What I'm thinking here, where my head is going, is that like some of us have had dysfunctional childhoods or traumatic childhoods. But on the other hand, there are people who've had very healthy childhoods.
Yeah.
Right? The dysfunctional people with this dysfunctional childhoods will obviously have far greater issues in their adult life. It could be addictions, it could be finding it difficult to keep a job or finding fulfillment in work or relationships or other stuff. Those are very visible things. You can immediately see that we need help. People who come from very secure childhoods doesn't mean that they don't experience overwhelm at time or stress on other times. It could be work related. Those can be very subtle. I don't have that background, but that's how I look at it.
You're correct. You're absolutely correct. So the nervous system has 3 states, according to Dr. Stephen Porges, who came up with this. We used to think it has 2 states, right? Like fight or flight or shut down. And now we're looking at it as realizing that there are 3. There's like this mobilization when there's threat. So if I back it up even more, you've got something called neuroception. So I imagine you've got a little scanner. Again, you're not aware because it's autonomic. So it's running in the background all the time. And it's scanning for signs of danger constantly on your behalf. This is, again, part of what keeps our physical bodies alive. It's a beautiful thing, scanning for danger. Now, every person has a unique nervous system. that has a unique kind of little black book about what your nervous system has learned is threatening to you. So what my nervous system might have things on its list of things it's registering as threat that's very different than yours. And then there's maybe some universal things like man coming at me with knife. That's on the list probably for most people.
Yeah.
Grizzly bear, got it. But there's all kinds of other things that get put on that list that may not make any sense. And they're all sensory cues. So what your body uses to detect threat or safety is sensory cues. Sounds, tastes, smells, visuals, etc., right? So if you think about how many different sensory information that your body is receiving in any given moment and how it can link any one of those micro sensations to either threat or safety. It files them, threat or safety, threat or safety. You have a very unique list of what your body has made associations about. And based on that list, it's going to engage in either fight or flight, mobilization, or perhaps shutdown, or it will have safety cues of the safety state of your nervous system. That's the third one. It's called the ventral vagal. There's a lot of hype right now about your vagus nerve and nervous system regulation, how to stimulate your vagus nerve, which is essentially the notion of how do you stimulate cues of safety to your body. So you might have this really beautiful childhood, but there's no way, if you're a human, that you're going to get away with complete and perfect and utter safety your whole life, where there is no stress or overwhelm. And the more, let's use the word healthy, that your nervous system is, meaning there's a lot of ventral vagal, green, safe cues coming in, and you are in a relatively safe environment in the present day, you're likely to be able to process, let's say, a cancer diagnosis in real time or shortly thereafter, process it, and it doesn't get stuck in the body. It's digested or metabolized, that experience, because you have adequate love and support and safety, and you can work through the feelings without it feeling like death to you. To feel those feelings or face what's going or whatever's coming up in your body, you can digest it all and bring presence to it without getting completely overwhelmed by it. If that happens, then cancer isn't a trauma. It's an event that your body processed effectively and you move on from. But let's say you're 6 months old and you hear a loud noise and your mom is also diffusing essential oils, and so it's orange. The smell of oranges is in the air. And it was pleasant, but all of a sudden it was really scary. And you start crying, and your mom takes a couple minutes to get there. And you're scared, and you're like, I'm going to die. Because I heard this loud noise, which sounds like danger, and it scared me. And I'm alone, and where's mom? And your body makes all kinds of associations. And now it's got like a little black book with the smell of oranges and loud noises, and you're alone. Now, mom comes and comforts you, and hopefully you process and metabolize that. But maybe you don't. Maybe your nervous system holds on to that note. And even though you had a lovely childhood, you're so vulnerable when you're really young. It's way more dramatic to be alone. And your nervous system knows it. It's more sensitive when you're younger. So that's why everything in mental health goes back to your childhood. Because you could have a lovely childhood, but there are going to be just some things that your body could not effectively digest or metabolize or make meaning of when you are most vulnerable. And as a mom myself, I have lots of compassion for the fact that I'm not going to do this perfectly. My kids are going to have some nervous system responses that maybe are not right-sized in the future. I have hope that they can heal and repair those. But yeah, so I want to just say that for parents, like, this isn't about doing it perfectly or being like, oh shoot, I've ruined my kids' lives, their nervous systems. It's just about knowing that everyone's going to have some disproportionate, stuck kind of trauma type responses in their systems if they're human. And to normalize that a little bit so that both gives hope to people who have really obvious trauma, that there's a good reason why And even to those who like can't quite connect the dots, that there's a good reason why, because you have a nervous system and you're a human and you had a childhood, and it's just wild to imagine on this earth that we're going to effectively process every little thing.
I come across like a lot of people who say in general that they're hesitant in approaching a mental health therapist, even if there is something showing up. For example, they're not making the move that they need to in their careers, and they keep giving themselves some excuse or the other, but their heart really desires that, but they're not taking that step.
Yeah, they're stuck.
As a mental health therapist, somebody who understands this, what are some symptoms or signs that one can reflect on themselves, what they can start noticing in their own behaviors or reactions that can probably be an indication that talking to somebody might help them?
Awesome. I love that. Okay. We call those trailheads. I call them trailheads. I borrow that from internal family systems therapy. But this idea that we'll have thoughts. So a lot of us don't want to look inside because it's overwhelming and we don't know what to do with it all. So I want to introduce the idea that we have like this whole inner world, and to pay attention to our bodies is to also pay attention to thoughts, feelings, sensations, urges, places where we're stuck, inner critics. Lots going on in there. That's my answer, really. There's obvious ones, like where we get triggered or activated, or we have this disproportionate response to a situation where we're like, later we calm down and we're like, who was that? Why did that happen? Or we have all these good intentions to move forward in our career, to make life changes, and then a day goes by and another day goes by and another day goes by and we're stuck. All of those kinds of thoughts, feelings, stuck places, conflicts inside of us, inner conflicts, are all trailheads and opportunities to say, okay, something is going on inside of me here that is keeping me from being free, from feeling fully alive as I'd like, or meeting my goals. And I hook that directly to, you have a nervous system that's doing that. That all of these urges and thoughts and feelings are connected to your nervous system. So if I were to map it out really simply, I would pull out of your head your spirity self, okay? So just the wispy, spirity essence of who you are, Rena. I'm like, okay, here's Rena, and at her core, her authentic, true essence, the part of her that might, let's say, live on beyond her body. And then we'll pinch out of Rena her brain and nervous system, all the gangly connectivity that goes throughout your whole body. And then we're left with your flesh and bones, right? Your blood, everything else. So we've got these three parts of you. Normally we say mind, body, spirit, right? Instead of mind, I use nervous system. Okay, so we're expanding just this idea of your cognitive thinking to, it's way bigger than that. There's all these sensations and neuroception scanning and signals being sent based on what's coming in from your body. 80% of your body's sensory messages get sent to the brain, and you behave based on 80% of what's coming in. And then, your brain being like, is this safe or not safe? Safe or not safe? 20% is like willpower, messages from the brain to the body. So you can know so many things are true or logical, but your body can't seem to get on board with that. And it can be so frustrating for people. And I said that is where mental health can be super helpful. If you have a somatic or internal family systems therapist, or we call them now bottom-up therapists. So top-down therapy would be talk therapy, where we're doing a lot of verbal processing. We're trying to use that 20% of the brain more to cognitively overcome and almost fight the nervous system. And sometimes we need to do that in an emergency or for a short period of time. But if you have the luxury and the privilege, I would invite listeners to consider finding someone who can help them with the 80%, and they'll get further faster. You have to slow things down a bit and you have to learn more about the language of the whole inner world, but it's more effective long term, in my professional opinion.
Got it.
Yeah.
So, in your previous episode, when you were talking about your cancer journey, a big takeaway from that journey was to befriend your nervous system.
Yep.
So, talk to us a little bit more about that. What does it mean befriending your nervous system? How
Yeah.
can we do it in our everyday lives? What does it look like in practical terms?
Okay. So I'll be as practical as possible, but you'll have to be open and use your imagination a little bit. Okay.
Okay.
So you've got your spirity self, you've got your nervous system. Your nervous system is often the one in charge. What we dream about is having our spirity self in charge and in the driver's seat. Now, when your spirity self is in charge, again, internal family systems, I'm using a lot of their language, you are confident and calm and very curious, genuinely curious and compassionate. You have a lot of creativity. I hear people say all the time, I'm not creative. I'm like, oh, a part of you is not creative. Maybe you're something about your nervous system says you're not creative. But if yourself is present and in charge of your system, everyone's creative. You're just very grounded and present, and you're getting lots of those safety cues. In order for self to be in charge, the nervous system has to relax. And it will only relax if it thinks it's safe to relax. So often the befriending your nervous system looks like your spirity self, who is in there. Everyone's got one. It's the you that can observe all this is going on, but really can honestly admit you're not in charge. So I want to go to the gym, but I can't. I have to get this paper done, but I'm procrastinating. The more your spirity self can observe that, yeah, that's happening. I want to do things, or a part of me wants to do this, but another part's making it impossible for me to get up and move and go or do or overcome. So, practically speaking, we are taking whatever amount of self we have and starting with becoming aware and being curious about all of these little trailheads. We call them parts of our nervous system because we don't just have one. Think about how complex our nervous system and all the wiring is, or in our brain. We have so many neural networks. And depending on which neural network your nervous system is operating from, you could be a rational person or you could be unhinged. And it could be 5 minutes apart. And you could be like, what? Who is this lady? So it really depends on, we call it different parts of your nervous system can blend and overshadow yourself, right? And get in the driver's seat. So building a relationship with your nervous system this is the imagination part. It's like having all these different people inside of you. And in any given moment, you could have 50 of them, maybe more. And they can be in charge sometimes. And then the next second, a different part of you is in charge. And the next second, a different. And it's like multiple personalities, except not in the diagnostic extreme. It is a really helpful way to help people feel less overwhelmed and lost in their system. To just accept the fact and be open to the idea that you have a nervous system with lots of parts to it. And building a relationship with each and every part, one at a time, begins to build trust instead of us trying to fight the nervous system all the time when it's going to win every time, because that's how it works. We befriend it and it builds trust with this higher, more competent, developed energy, and it will relax and let you do things again.
Okay. So, two questions. One is when you talk about the many parts of us, like you said, multiple personality disorders, and just tell me the big difference between the two.
Okay. The extreme multiple personality is such a fragmentation and splitting from reality that often those parts have amnesia from each other. So it's almost like there's so little self available that you're getting a very, very extreme version of multiple personality where somebody can literally embody and act like a 14-year-old for days or hours. And then the next day be 20 and a completely different personality and not know that they were 14 yesterday. So most of our listeners are not going to identify with that experience.
Yeah.
Okay. What we're talking about is the average everybody who has a nervous system, who's got medium mental health challenges, even to PTSD significant, that we can relate to. Like, part of me wants to get the chicken salad and part of me wants to get the hot dog and french fries. And those are two real, like, urges and feelings inside of me, right? Or I can have a wellness part of me that's like, I am going to eat and make everything from scratch and it's going to be such a great week. And then the other part of you that in the moment is, I ain't got time for that. I'm going to stop at Chipotle again.
Right.
Yeah. So that kind of inner conflict inside of you is two parts of your nervous system that have very different ways of protecting you in conflict with each other.
A great example, because those are choices that we make every day with every meal. And so when you say befriending your nervous system, going back to my example of, say, like career choices,
Yeah.
or let's say a part of me is saying that I need to, let's say, go back to school. These are my career aspirations. And I think this particular degree will really work well. But then there is another part of me which is, oh my God, the time that will go in and I won't be able to do a full time job, or let's say the debt that I will have to pursue that degree, and whatever. And those are legitimate questions that
Completely, yes.
both sides. So when you're saying befriending, so we befriend both parts, right? The one that is positively reassuring, and the other which is, I would say, sabotaging.
Yes, very common with both of them. So I would say I would ask you to go inside, to find those two parts of you. Sometimes I'll say, imagine holding them in your hand so they're a little, you get a little space from them and they're not so literally, just imagine looking at them. Sometimes people see an image of what this part kind of embodies. Sometimes it's like a cartoon or a character or they see it, they get a visual of some kind. I'll also say, try to find where it sits in your body. Is it here? Is it here? Is it in your gut? And we could either have an invited conversation with one of those parts, or maybe learn that we could have both in tandem. But usually we start with one. It keeps it a little more organized and less overwhelming. So we might ask, let's talk to the one that's sabotaging. And we'll ask the other one if it would step back and just let us just sit with and bring some presence without a lot of agenda. But we just want to understand if the part's willing to share with us, like, what it's trying to do for you. And then we listen. We don't think about an answer. We don't try to make connections or figure it out, which would be a little bit more of like traditional talk therapy. We actually just listen and wait and to see if we get some kind of message from the body. It could be a sensation or a feeling or a sense that we translate into words, or it could be words. We could be like, we could hear it talk to us. This sounds wild, but it is so cool when you can actually have this real relationship where you can understand what your body is up to instead of fight it. Say, oh, because you know another part that's, what's your problem? You're sabotaging yourself. Why can't you just do it? Okay, we ask that part to step back. We just want to sit with this part that's really stopping us from submitting that application. What are you worried about, Farina?
Got it.
The money or whatever it says. And we just follow the trail. We're like, okay. And it leads to really cool experiences where over time, with enough trust being built, we can help unload the burden that part is protecting that maybe no longer serves you, that maybe served you when you were 5 or 10 or 15. But as an adult, you don't need it anymore to do that for you.
So let's take this degree example.
Yeah.
How could this be protecting me at 5 when I didn't even know what I want to do? Or I go to a public school where finances are not really a concern.
Of course, yeah.
And my parents are taking care of me.
It
So
doesn't.
how does that? I'm just curious.
So let's say we talk to that part of you, and that part's, I'm so worried about the money, and it's, I don't know, it's just so much. As you sit with that part, you start to understand that it thinks you're 10. Of course, if you're 10 and these parts are also younger than you, they're often also young, they're just acting parentified. And they're not super sophisticated. They often just have one perspective. So they lack creative problem solving, or they lack the ability to really take in the bigger picture and make a decision for today that baby steps us to where we need to be. If they just, the 10-year-old shouldn't have that much debt and she doesn't know how to figure it out. You're like, oh, that's so interesting. Do you know I'm not 10? That I believe there's a 10-year-old stuck in my brain somewhere, a scene of a 10-year-old, but I'm such and such an age. And I think I could help you with her, the younger one, if you would like that. I'm not going to make you do anything you don't, like, you're in charge. And the nervous system, like, is, huh? Wait, what? Because it's oriented to something in the past. It's not updated to the present. It's like it got stuck in the past and frozen in the past. So it doesn't need to be 10-year-olds don't know how to handle money. It's just, what do you mean? It just knows that's a task that's too much for a 10-year-old. And so it stops you.
So are you trying to say that once you have that conversation, it gets some, let's say, logical answers to it? And when you have that conversation with that part and you, in a way, explain or present a case that will actually calm that thing down, that, okay, oh, this makes sense.
You start to learn, it makes more sense the more it gets contextualized in the past. Once you understand what this part of you is looking at and how it's not looking at you today, it doesn't know your spirity self. And as you listen to it, it has an experience of safety, that you're not fighting it, that you're taking it seriously. And you're like, no, there really is a 10-year-old that needs your help, like needs help, and I'm not going to stop protecting her from making financial decisions or going to college. You're like, that's wild. So let's say the trust is built, you're able to unburden that young one, this part relaxes, and then you're like, oh, or let's say we don't even do that deep of work. We just listen to this part and it's, oh, wow, this is new. Someone's taking me seriously. And it literally relaxes. You can go, oh, you can feel it in your body. Then suddenly you have more self energy present and you look at the problem and you're like, oh, yeah, the next 6 months is not a good time to enter school. But if I do this, then I could do that in the January and then it's no big deal. Problem solved. Like suddenly it feels clear and less all or nothing, or less ruminating and less stuck, because you have enough self energy to have creativity and to see
and to solve that problem,
right, without
irrationally, which might work best for you, and you can look at it in a more
rational, actually rational.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's a great way of understanding that having that conversation and a reasoning with that part can actually calm it down and result in creative problem solving, in actually dealing with it.
exactly. Because really, the best thing to do is to talk to both parts that are primarily involved, keeping you in this stuck place. So the one that's trying to urge you to go ahead and achieve might be overachieving, right? So some of your trailheads might be perfectionism or excessive achievement or performance or organization, like anything that it doesn't even look like a mental health symptom, but actually could be a less sophisticated, less adult kind of part of your nervous system acting out of survival instead of acting from a place that is right sized to the present circumstances. And we don't have a language for that as a culture. So I'm hoping, and I'm already seeing it, movies like Inside Out, Gabby Bernstein, who's got like a lot of self-help, motivational content and podcasts, has now, interviewed Dr. Dick Schwartz and is like doing internal family systems, this language of befriending your parts of your system and seeing it as protective, building relationship with these parts, unburdening them. I just saw the Huberman Lab just interviewed him in March and does a demo of this live with the host. So I think over time we will have a greater acknowledgement of this as a language and a really helpful and accurate way to understand how we interact with our bodies and our nervous system and how we solve for mental health challenges or just life challenges. But it's still new and weird.
I'm just thinking that and be included in that, that we sometimes lose so much opportunity because I just delayed seeing a therapist. And I'm trying to figure out which part of me was trying to stop me from doing that and why. What were the rationales that it was presenting?
Yeah. Yep. Signed up for that
And
January
yeah,
membership and then like, wait, what's
yeah,
going on here? And then I often see like, well, it's not rocket science. I just have to go. I just need to make myself go. And that's
nervous
fighting the
system.
nervous system. Right? It's the nervous system fighting with itself in different parts. And if you can show up, slow things down, which is what's hard for us to do because our nervous system often keeps us mobilized or shut down and collapsed. So we often cycle without a lot of safety and self being present between go, push, push, react, react to, oh, what a day. I just want to check out. I just want to scroll or watch TV or have a glass of wine or whatever. And that's not rest. That's just a different survival state that we're just cycling that every
Yeah.
day.
Take
So
note of that.
it can take
Yeah.
time.
And there's so many times that I hear I have a great support system. I have family to talk to, and I have church friends to talk to, or just regular friends where we can just
Yeah.
download. But the big thing that I realized when I went through my own journey of, seeing somebody, I noticed that yes, I had a friend system and I could download and we could share and have that conversation, but they were not trained to rewire some of the thinking that I had. And they were
Mm-hmm.
just being friends, which is what they're supposed to do.
We need people that will hold us no matter what part of
Exactly.
us is talking and love
Anyway,
us anyways.
that
That
is
is
healing.
healing.
And I loved it. And it's
Mm-hmm.
needed. And they were acting
Mm-hmm.
healthy by just being that.
Yeah.
They're not supposed to do that work for me. And
Yeah.
for me to really move forward, I needed that guidance from somebody to really question and challenge that mindset of wherever
Mm-hmm.
I'm stuck. Very
Yeah.
gently, being compassionate, being non
Yeah.
judgmental, being sensitive, and in a very safe environment, challenge that and get curious. Okay, what is happening there? But we need
Yeah.
both, and one cannot do the work of the other group. My therapist cannot be my friend, and my friends cannot be my
Mm-hmm.
therapist. And I just need a support system where I can just go and unwind and talk and have a human connection and have somebody who just holds that space for me.
Yeah. And you don't have to return
Exactly.
that. That's one of the luxuries of therapy is you don't have to be burdened with holding space for them also. You just get space held
You.
for you.
When I'm with
Yeah.
my therapist, they hold that space, but they also do that internal work in me that helps me move
Yeah.
forward. And
Yeah, so if I may put words to that a little bit from this more like IFS perspective therapy, I would say that I might lend my self energy to you. So if you are blended with all these different parts of you and you're having a hard time like pulling them out and kind of looking at them with some distance and space on your own, that's really normal. So to have somebody lend self to you and you can stay a little blended, and I can say, Rena, let's go inside. I would say, I'm not here to challenge what's going on inside of you. I'm here to help you connect to what's going on inside of you from self energy and to unblend from it. So if you were to say, which again is a little bit different kind of therapy than what people are mostly used to, or like what a life coach might do, which are very again, they're helpful, good, but different. So I would say go inside, find that part of you. Let's say you're pretty blended with it. It's just easier for me to do what I would call direct access. And I'll just talk to the part of you that's really wants you to go to get this degree. And I can bring the compassion and curiosity, and you can just speak blended with that part from that part, and it makes it a little bit easier, but I'm not directing the conversation so much as facilitating contact with that part of you and listening to that part of you so that we both can learn together at the same time, but more for your
yeah,
benefit, what it is that is going on in your bespoke nervous system.
That's a great, I think, distinction that you made, was that not challenge, but connect. Challenge is more in
Yeah,
my world of coaching. Yeah. Now,
exactly. Which is
which is
totally
appropriate,
appropriate.
but then we have to always keep that in mind, that in therapy it's always a connection, that conversation is about the past, and in coaching the conversation is about the future, moving
Moving
forward,
forward.
not from your past but where you are today. So
Exactly.
anytime, like, we have to, as even as coaches, we have to be very cognizant of the fact that if my client is showing up in the session way too much from the past, then we have to have that conversation with them, that look, I think a
Yeah.
therapist would be a better option for you rather than a coach, because we can only work from now to the future. We are not trained to
Yeah.
work to restore,
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
is not working for you from the past. And sometimes that
Yep.
combination of working with a therapist and with a coach can work great, because I think what therapists do is, yeah, they help you become whole and complete so that you can function in your present. What the coach does is take that whole and complete person into the future. You can live your dreams and
Yeah.
your aspirations.
And so I love that so much. I'm so glad you brought this up, because as you work with people and we're trying to cast vision for their future and figure out like who they are and how to express that in the future in their work or in their next steps, and they get stuck, sometimes they'll never know that they're stuck unless they have a coach, right? Who's moving them forward and encouraging them to see a future. And when they get stuck in that moment, it's really cool. You could say, okay, the parts of you that are keeping you stuck here, let's have a therapist work with you to untangle and relax those parts back so that you can come back next time and that you're more freed up to
Yeah.
take the action we're
Okay.
talking
Sometimes
about.
I even
Yeah.
suggest that, look, take a break. Come back to me in 6 months when you work through that, because then you will be in a much
Yeah.
better place to really look into the future and have a forward moving conversation. Because it takes time. Therapy is a process, it takes time to unfold the
Mm-hmm.
story, to really understand what's going on, and to address it and to restore it. But once you're restored and you're there, then that forward moving conversation can happen very fast.
Yes. Yeah. If they have enough self and creativity
Yes.
and calmness and confidence to see the picture that's coming together for
Yeah.
their next steps are going to be easy to take. Yeah. You're going to have less
Exactly.
roadblocks and
Then we can
sabotage
really
and
have
yeah.
that conversation to clarify their vision, where they're looking at, what they're looking at, and build a plan around it, coming from their values. But I often notice then when people are stuck, they are unable to even have that clarity about what they want to do, where they want to go. It's
Yes.
hard identifying values for them.
It's hard because you've got different parts with
Exactly.
different values. And you might have six
Yeah.
different values in there. It's very
So,
confusing and hard to have like a sense of, okay, this is it. But in my work, I rely on the person's self energy to have conversations with people like you to plot their forward, movement and their day to day. I love that part when they're getting stuck because I feel very equipped to say, okay, let's find those parts of you that are engaged and keeping you
up,
from coming up with your values here or being clear about what's next or what Rena's challenging you
yeah.
on. Yeah, so very dynamic, very cool to see the interplay between the
Exactly.
different
We have to
yeah.
be very, very cognizant of the fact that I don't start playing a therapist for them, but I stay in my role as a coach and have that
Yeah.
conversation and actually refer them to somebody, or they can find their own, but to notice when they're stuck and it's being repeated, a certain pattern which is not going away.
Yeah.
And so now I'm getting also curious that how I can identify those conversations in my clients.
Yeah. Because I don't think it would be out of scope. I mean, more and more, the hope is that this idea of interacting with your inner world in this way is really a lifestyle, that it's not just a therapy. And again, there is some, I think, delicateness around the work of when it does, move into the past. But I think yoga professionals and coaches and all different providers can help people identify the parts getting in the way. That can be really helpful, and I think still could be within the scope of your work to say, okay, a part of you is sabotaging and a part of you is pushing and a part of you is criticizing you. Okay, so just sort of map some of that, then take it to your therapist. They actually do have trainings specific for non-clinical therapists. So it used to be that the IFS Institute in particular was training all kinds of professionals because that's really their heart, is that this is for everyone. But over time, therapy professionals were having trouble getting trained. There was like a really long waiting list, like a clinical track and then a non-clinical track. But the heart behind the organization is ultimately that everyone gets access to this language and handles on how it's not necessarily new. I mean, there's some older concepts in the psychology history, right, that have this idea of different ego states or gestalt techniques, but I really think that the internal family system like model is pretty holistic and the most practical in this idea of personifying different parts of us. And anyone can start to do that just to get curious about what's going on inside of them and recognize that often what feels really scary is old and it's actually not as bad as you think it is, even though the sensation you're feeling is intense sometimes, that it's not that bad. So yeah, while the deeper work, especially maybe initially as people are getting used or need somebody to help them learn it and practice it, I think over time, I hope it'll become more of a way of life, that we all know we have nervous systems and that we all aren't weirded out by the idea that we have different parts of our nervous system and different neural networks that have different.
My own personal, I think, where I want to see the world headed or that perspective to change is that addressing any of our mental health is health.
Yeah.
But people, I still feel that there is a lot of stigma around it, and people think that, oh, they don't need it, or why should they need it, or it's only in very serious conditions that I need it.
Or I've tried it and it didn't work that well, or I just talked and I guess I felt a little bit better,
I
but I still managing my anxiety every
Yeah.
day. And it's to those people, especially, I think those who've tried getting help and they feel like it didn't work for them or it wasn't enough or it was overwhelming. That's another thing. Like I tried to be a good student. I did therapy. I cried and I told my worst stories, but I still feel like it's still haunting me. It's still following me around. So I think, again, just expressing it in an overwhelming way or talking about it doesn't heal it. And we're learning that more and more. There's a particular way in which it needs to be expressed in a way that's metabolized by your system and not just flooding, and that you can experience therapy as being more gentle, less overwhelming, and more effective.
That's another thing. A lot of people try it for a little while. Usually, people don't find
The right
therapist.
therapist.
It's a very
It
personable
is, yeah.
relationship. If the rapport is not there, it's not going to work. So give it another try, although it can be a little taxing because, oh, now I have to have this whole conversation all over again. The time
Mm-hmm.
and the effort that it takes to have that, it sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
But rarely people find the right therapist in the first time. It's usually a trial and error situation that they'll go. But when you do find that right person, it is
Mm-hmm.
so rewarding.
So rewarding. Yeah, I mean, it took me a long time to find the one I have currently because I wanted specifically an IFS therapist and not someone who just said they did IFS but didn't really like it wasn't their primary thing. They just knew a little bit about it. And I'm finding that's also true. A lot of people are adding it to their toolbox, but I wanted somebody who, like, this really was their primary
Yeah.
toolbox because for it to really work, I think you really have to kind of be 100% about this idea of being compassionate and curious with these parts of you and step away from trying to figure it out so hard, or the therapist not having all the answers, but rather yourself has the answers and your nervous system has the answers. And as you help your client build that relationship, they know what's best for them, not me. I'm just there to help facilitate that relaxing of the nervous system and that relationship build. And so I was trying to find somebody for me, and it was a lot of word of mouth and the IFS Institute's referral website and email, and somebody else emailed and try so-and-so, and finally, you know. So word of mouth is often good, or I would say I would direct people to the IFS Institute website for people who are trained.
To find somebody.
Because that usually means they've really invested some money and they're serious about it.
Correct. And then you can always look how many years of experience they've had or whatever. You check out their website and see. And
chemistry. And you got to feel the vibe in the conversation too. Yeah.
Okay, before I close, now look back at your cancer journey. And because I really wanted you to see that connection from your personal example. I know that you said that you were very disconnected and you really befriended it. What is the big before and now shift that you've seen in yourself?
I have so much more confidence in myself. I trust my gut more. I know what my gut is. I know when it's talking and when parts are talking. I'm genuinely excited to meet new parts of me instead of afraid of them, or like, we fear what we don't know. And I think I'm at a place now where I'm like, if my body's aching, I'm not afraid of it. I want to move toward it, because the more I move toward it, the more likely I am to be able to find healing. And the same thing, so whether it's a physical symptom or a feeling or an anxiety sensation or a belief that's really negative, I know that it's just a part of me holding some old stuff, and that it's not true of who I am, and that I am separate from the nervous system. It's a part of me, but I am still able to be with it. And I genuinely get excited to meet these different parts of me. And I think people could begin to see their bodies as not just a vehicle or just a thing that your head is on top of, but that it has a lot to teach you, and that you could be much more safer and fully in your body and happier and more clear and compassionate of a person and more grounded. Like, all of that is possible, is what I want to tell people. And it doesn't have to be overwhelming or scary. You can just slowly work your way in to building that relationship over time. And it's so worth it. It's a gift you can give generations to come. Whether you're a parent or not, you have influence. And so the more kind of spirity energy we have, instead of reactive trauma response nervous system parts out there in the world, leading companies or in schools, or, you know, leading the neighborhood, whatever it is, right? The more spirity presence without agenda can show up, it affects other nervous systems, and it's going to have an impact. So instead of us dysregulating each other with our parts, the more people can have safety in their own bodies and extend that to other people, and then that helps co-regulate other people. And then this idea of community and connection can be real and can ripple in a positive way instead of fear begetting fear.
Yeah. So a quick question: when you talk parts, are they normally formed in your childhood, or can we still keep forming them in adulthood?
Okay, great. So you're born with parts, right? Because you're born with a nervous system. And you're also born with some parts maybe already in extreme roles, though. So your natural protective parts are supposed to show up and protect you, and then a couple minutes later, or the next day, or after a week of stress, relax into their normal state again, and you process that experience. And it's like extreme roles are supposed to be temporary for survival, not chronic. And so what happens in childhood, if it's not resolved, turns into chronic roles of extreme expression that these parts are in. So we don't get rid of them. We just need them to take on their more natural state. We want them to relax into their more natural state and only show up when we need our body to autonomically, engage into fight or flight. And really, when you're at work or play or socially connecting with somebody, you're in a little bit of a fight or flight, right? You get a little mobilization energy. We just want enough safety present that it's right sized to the situation. And then we go into a restorative state afterwards. The stress is over, the flow state, the marathon's over, whatever we're doing. And we sleep and we restore and we rest. And we do that safely, not in a check out, dissociate way, but in like a present way. That's the goal, is that what happened in childhood gets resolved so that we can stay present and safe. But we're not trying to get rid of these parts or just restore them to their natural state. They're like a part of our personality, but when your humor is showing up to help you survive, it's probably got an edge to it or not in its most constructive place.
If it's chronic, then of course we do need to talk to somebody, a professional who can help us.
Mm-hmm.
But in our general, when we are dealing with our regular highs and lows, how can we befriend our nervous system that can support us in a way to calm us down?
Yeah. So you've probably heard of all kinds of tools like grounding exercises or meditation or breathing. But I think the one that I would really stress to your listeners is learning to pause and go inside and bring presence without agenda to whatever you find in there, whatever little feelings or thoughts or whatever's coming up, those trailheads, to just sit with them. I know it sounds too simple, but often we breathe or we meditate or we ground or we do yoga to get away from those sensations. And we're working against our nervous system again if we're trying to escape and force ourselves into peace. Really, what our body needs is for us to show up to that inner space and bring presence
So,
and
yeah,
curiosity.
and that would require just some quiet time, sit with them and see what
Yeah.
shows up.
See what shows up and just listen to it. So sometimes I'll check in with a client and I'll say, like, hey, how am I feeling toward what I'm noticing inside? And if they say, well, I just want to tell her it's going to be okay, or, I'm annoyed with this part, well, then you're blended with another part of you. So if you're not showing up to that space with compassion, openness, curiosity, relaxation, or you're like, come on, hurry up, all of those other energies are just other parts of your nervous system that are nervous that you're here and taking over again. So it does take some time to learn how to unblend from all the different parts. Even if they seem nurturing, it's often a part that's acting like the mom inside of you or something, or the coach, or the Navy SEAL. There's all kinds of different characters we meet when we go inside that are not self. And so the goal is to really learn how to be and just notice first and without agenda. That's my best advice. I'll give you a download for your listeners with a whole bunch of resources. So I've got kind of like 3 different levels. If you just want a free next step that's easily accessible, there's a bunch of things that are listed there to kind of help support you, because sometimes it's just too hard to do it by yourself. And you do need something to sort of inspire you, more learning or a meditation guide to help you go inside.
Yeah, that'd be really helpful because for a layperson, it's very difficult to understand that, okay, what does it look like to just sit there and listen and not do something? Or
I know.
because a part of me is, okay, this is saying that I'm anxious. Okay, why am I anxious? Oh, I have, let's say, a presentation coming up next week and I have this to do. And my instinct will tell me that if that is what's bothering you, get up and start working on it.
So then you have a part of you that's get up and go work on it, right? And another part of you that's like, oh, I'm so anxious about it. I have so much to do. I have so much to do. That energy is being spent saying, I'm anxious and I have so much to do, and it's not doing it, but it's also keeping you from being able to do it. And then another part that's going to shame you into doing it. Come on, just get up and do it. And so we're just observing with curiosity. I want you to think of them as little people inside of you that are panicking and running around, and they're not very sophisticated. They've just got one job. I have this hammer and I do this. I say, you have so much to do over and over.
Yeah. No,
and
because we don't know what they can do to calm that down and to actually genuinely listen and be present with it.
Presence. So normally what happens is, okay, I'm going to try this. Another part of me shows up that's like, I can do this. All right, stop it. Or I'm here. Don't worry about it. I'll take care. That's another part. It's just presence without agenda. And maybe talking to that part and saying, hi, I would love to hear more about what you're so worried about. What is your job, Farina? Oh, you just tell her, okay. And what would happen if you didn't? And so there's some
Yeah.
questions and things
Trick.
that kind of tricks about how you can basically you interview the part. But if it shares with you, great. If it doesn't, that's okay. Because sometimes I'll ask a part, do you want to meet self? And the part's, I don't know, maybe, not now. And you're like, okay, great. And it's like, you respected my no? That's never happened before. Because this is a part that is used to authority overpowering it all the time. It's the experience of love, the experience of presence, the experience of not an abuse of power, but of having choice that heals these parts and causes them to relax. And that is not how we live.
Yeah.
So I will give you
Okay.
that handout. Level 1, 2, and 3, each progressively more commitment, or level 2 might be by a book. There's playlists of podcasts we've curated that have some demos so people can experience this a
That'd
little
be
bit
great.
more visually, or
Yeah. All right.
some nervous system tools. We've got some audio music that you can listen to that can help retune the nervous system a little bit. So some fun
Okay.
stuff.
Cool. That'll be great. I really look forward to that, and we can attach it to our episode. Thank you, Chrissy. Thank you so much for your time. I know you've given me so much time and so much information, which I think is really helpful. And
I'm glad. I hope it
I hope,
is. And
yeah,
it's an honor
yeah.
to share.
I hope people
Yeah,
find this valuable and they can implement it in their lives and find peace.
that sounds
Yeah.
perfect. Peace for everybody.
If you found our content valuable, please like, share, and subscribe and spread the word. I think the best compliment is being referred. That one action of yours can help us reach more and more people and fulfill the mission of thriving changes. Thank you for considering.